that's true. It is an Odin stream today, because it is the day Wednesday, which is Woden's Day, which is Odin's Day, if you didn't know. So today's stream, we're going to be doing some more Odin code development mainly. It's mainly for the runtime, actually, of the language. We're not doing compiler development today. We are mostly doing runtime development. The stuff I want to be working on, there's one or two ideas I want to do. But before we get to that, we're going to wait a little while whilst people come onto the stream. And I'm just going to post the necessary stuff to the most common places that you would want to place it. Like, for instance, the social medias. That's the technical term for that. So we're going to do that here. And just do it to the other places like so. And let's just wait a few more minutes. And tonight's drink, by the way, is Old Original by Everard's. That is a rich and fruity ruby ale. Everard's of Leicestershire. It's nice. It's nice. It's good when it's on tap. But clearly, I've not been able to go to a pub for nearly a year now. So, hey ho, you have to deal with stuff in a bottle. Right. Okay. We're just going to wait a little bit longer until we get actually onto some programming. Right, I think I can now safely state we can actually now just show the screen. So now we're going to go back to the actual normal scene. We're going to transition back and hey presto, Bob's your uncle. You can see what I'm doing. You're seeing, oh no, I've got all these different tests everywhere. Yeah, that's what I've got. So I'm just going to run test LVM API. So there are some things, I'm just going to do that. That should run. Yeah, there's nothing there. Hello, just to make sure everything's working. Hey presto, it's fine. So now we're on stream. We've got all this wonderful stuff. So we're going to talk about, before we start actually doing anything, I'm going to just talk about two new things that I've added into Odin. The first thing that you briefly saw was the new flag called strict style. Now what strict style does is effectively, this is, what's the best way of putting it? It enforces some minor coding styles into the language itself by doing it at a lexical level. Now, what this means is that certain things will have to be required using this particular rule I've written. I may change the rule in the future, but for the time being, I'm keeping it where it is. And it's to make the code a bit more canonical against different code bases. I still allow for different brace styles, but only a select number now. There is a GitHub page for all of this where I discuss it. So let me just go to the issues page and then go to this, because what I'm talking about is eventually making this strict style the default mode. So what does this strict style do? One of the things it requires at the moment is trailing commas in your list if they're followed, it can't be followed by a new line. So you must have you have to have a trailing column here. I could make this work. This is not actually difficult to allow, but I'm wondering if I should enforce this or not. I know there are different styles where some people prefer one or the other. But if you're going to try to make it more canonical, one or the other, it's fine. Another thing that's going to happen is that because things are separated by new lines, that means you cannot have the operator at the beginning. So I know some people love this style here because sometimes it's easier to read or it's easier to format. So this means you're going to have the operator at the end, or you're going to have to use a backslash to consume the new line token, which effectively adds a statement terminator kind of thing, Bob. It's not exactly that, but it's very, very close to doing so. So this is, and if you don't do that, it's not going to allow because of the new line rules that I've added. Another thing is it restricts the kinds of brace styles that are valid. So an extra blank line between the condition and the brace body will not be allowed. So this is allowed, which is just one true brace style. This is beyond a Strustrup style, which is quite nice. I don't use it myself. This is the Allman style. Now, the ones below, none of these are valid. So there's an extra space here. This will not be allowed. You would have to clean that space up. What else you need to do? This one is not allowed here because you've got an extra space before the else bracket. This would not be allowed, even though I know some people in the community use this style, because there's an extra space here. This is just to make sure it's a bit more canonical. There's another one here, which is, this is not going to be allowed, which is an extra space again after the else. And then the other one here again is still an if statement, so you're not allowed a space there. So none of those styles are allowed. And having this now as kind of more enforcement at language level just makes things more canonical. Not fully. You can still have these, again, the general 99% or even 99.9% of brace styles, I'd state. These are the most common I've seen in the world. And this would actually and Odin will support them. So the question is, why am I adding this to the language? Well, this actually leads to a brilliant thing I actually asked the other day on Twitter. And it's something I've been talking about, and I've not been particularly sure about how to deal with this. And it seems like a very, what's the best way of putting it, aesthetic problem? But no, I've been actually questioning it myself. So I'm just going to post this over here. So on Twitter, I asked it, other than aesthetics and prettiness, very clear, what practical benefits do people believe making semicolons optional in a programming language offer? Because at the moment, it seems like most of the arguments I get for people saying, why do you have semicolons? Or, oh, can you keep semicolons? Or all this is purely aesthetic reasons. And I want to know, is there any practical reason? Now, I give examples that do have optional semicolons like Go, BCPL, and Scala, or Scala I think it is, all do it lexical, so they insert semicolons when there's a new line in the tokenizer, in the lexical analysis. Python does very similar as well. It has a new line character. It just ignores the new line characters when it's within an expression block. Now, I call it end of statement inference. It's technically wrong, but I just couldn't think of a decent way of explaining, hey, it does use a new line as a token, but within these blocks, it's ignoring them. Okay. So that's technically lexical, but with a minor grammatical difference when it knows how to ignore it. Lowe's approach is it just has simplified grammar. It just kind of figures out when the end of a statement is and goes, okay, that's the end, done. And then if you want to be explicit, you will have to use semicolons in lower. Swift and Kotlin are grammar driven, so their grammar actually defines when the statement terminator happens. And the way it's a bit more complicated and how it does that. And then there's JavaScript, which is actually pure insanity. And most people who are put off by semicolon insertion, it's usually they've just tried Java and that's the only language they've tried. I will have to be careful that in Odin, we technically do have grammar-driven optional semicolons, and it's done at the file scope, not within a procedure scope. And the reason is a lot of people just miss them out. So I'm actually in this bit where actually the rules that I have are really complicated, and they're not at all sane. Really, they're not simple. Again, they're very weird heuristics everywhere. So I'm actually asking the question, which way do I go? Do I say enforce semicolons everywhere, or do I just say, look, make them completely optional? Like effectively just say, look, don't need them, like Python. And in most people, I've been doing it. So Per Voicenson, absolutely genius effectively as a man, and he has very good stuff he was talking about here to me, and I was agreeing with him most of the time what he was saying. So he says, if semicolons aren't allowed, i.e. they're not optional, as in they're not part of the grammar, then one argument favours that it leads to a more canonical source code layout when you don't have to leave it to the programmer how many statements to put on each line. Whether reducing degrees of freedom in the source code layout is a good or a bad thing is a separate discussion, but I think that reducing these degrees of freedom by enforcing Go Funct or similar tools as external, I think you can make the same argument that fits into general that is end of design program. It certainly seems silly that you design a language with optional semicolons then have to have a de facto required code formatting stipulature. In Go's case, I believe the optional semicolons were added later on, so it's desirable in their case. So yeah, I actually said, Perla said, yeah, I found the original arguments, and I couldn't really see any arguments other than they were just purely aesthetic and to enforce a code style. So I partially disagree with Per here that actually it was, if you get rid of them, no, it's like making them optional is a way of making it that way. So that's where like Go has a particular brace style that goes on. It also has the different new lines that are going on there as well, and so on and so forth. Now he's right, yeah, it's aesthetics plus canonical style seems to be the primary motivations. I think aesthetics is clearly something I wasn't asking for. Is anything else? But canonical style does have some practical benefits to it. So it was very, and I think that's the practical benefits is from more of like consistency, coherency, and clarity. And those are the big 3 C's I usually think in my head. And if you just have one way of doing things, it usually gets rid of, it minimizes a lot of that, what's it called? It minimizes a lot of the bike shedding that people have with aesthetics, like saying, oh, I like this thing, I like that thing. And I'm like, if you just enforce one way, yes, it'll annoy some people, but it will shut up the bike shedders. And that's one way of doing things. Yeah, I feel strongly neutral on this subject. Yes, I do too. It is one of those like, So as I said, the other practical arguments that I had for, the practical arguments that I could think of for making semicolons optional are just because of the canonical style. This is more of a second order effect of having canonical style rather than just semicolons. One is metaprogramming tools. You can have really hacky approaches, and Go is a really good example of this, where you can have these metaprogramming tools that generate code or analyze code. And because they don't have semicolons, you can be really hacky and just do it. Another one is copy and pasting errors, because many people just, but again, this is where I'm like, that's what people state. That doesn't necessarily mean it is true. So it is an empirical statement, so we can technically test it. And I don't know if it's true or not. So it's the weaker of the arguments. The form one with the metaprogramming tools is a stronger argument because there is a lot of practical evidence that it's true. Another thing that Per was talking about here was talking also about like aesthetics, again, relating stuff. Especially with like he's saying Rust stuff like, oh, looks all ugly. And I was originally saying, yeah, it's required that the semicolons in Rust, because they're not actually statement terminators, but they're expression sequencing operators like an ML. Now, he said when it's not a serious object, objection. I agree. That is the official objection in Rust. I think I'm just doing the textbook definition of what they've said that the Rust developers have said. And I was just pretty much quoting it, nearly, I think. But I do agree that if you were going to design the language, it's not really a good justification to keep them, because you can make them and add rules to get rid of the semicolons. And again, he's saying F#scape may retrofit it, and I said, yeah, I agree. And I think Go, again, was saying retrofitted them as well, because you don't know what the grammar needs to be. And apparently Go's grammar, reading the original Rob Pike post from Google, which is this one here, load. It takes a long while to load for some reason. Here we go. This one is here. They were trying to, and apparently they were saying that loads of things were really complicated with all of the rules. Sorry if this is probably too small to see. Can I get rid of that thing? No, I won't block it because I don't want to read it. But yeah, they were saying that actually the BCPL approach, which is actually pretty much what they do, which is lexical insertion, works well. The rules in here are pretty simple and usually pretty intuitive. I'd probably modify them ever so slightly for Odin, if I was doing it with Odin, of course, and modify them. This will collapse it? Thank you, because that is clearly obvious that the hamburger button at the top will obviously close it. That was so clear. No, it wasn't. That's called being facetious. Right, so we are now going through all of this. Now, the semicolon rules here is where, like, yeah, this is where it happens. Now, you can theoretically make it work like Python does, and I've not allowed it to do a trade. In Odin at the moment with the strict style, I've required you have to have a trading semicolon. Now, I know many people dislike that. Trading semicolon if it's followed by a new line, by the way, that's what I mean. But I'm like, with a Python thing, you can easily make that rule where it's within an expression level, which the Odin parser already takes into account, by the way. And so I think Go parser does it as well. So it's like, it already takes this rule. I think Go wanted to make it purely lexical, so the grammar's simpler rather than having it pure lexical and grammatical, and so on and so forth. But yeah, it was one of those where I was again trying to figure out how to do this. So there's many different things, and I don't want to ask the public, what is your opinion about what semicolon should be? Because every single one is purely aesthetic. And I'm like, great, this is subjective. I don't want a subjective thing. But at the end of the day, I know it's going to be subjective. And I know I'm going to have to make one decision or the other. And I don't know which one I like. I think I'm probably, if I was going to make a bet, go down the remove semicolons, or it's not remove them, but makes them optional. And as two intermediary stages, one of them will be strict style. The other intermediary stage will be what's the word for it? The other stage would be what someone in the community is working on, which is absolutely amazing, is Odin Thumped. They're making an Odin formatter, and it will properly format your code. So it will, by default, it will fit the canonical style, which I'll decide whatever that is, because I am the benevolent dictator for life. Makes the problem solved. And then that will actually help as a transition period, so you can be able to convert old code into the new canonical style. There'll be a transition period of a couple of months or so, if that is going to be the case, whichever way it'll go. Now, making it optional, this is the reason why I am trying to be one way or the other, is for consistency. Because at the moment, the rules are bloody dodgy, and if I'm writing the specification, the actual specification, what I would have to say is, in the cases when semicolons are optional, would be huge. It's not easy to remember. It won't work. Now, someone's making a joke about, in fact, we just replace all the semicolons with nothing. And it's like, no, that doesn't work, because there are places where semicolons are required. A good example of this is control statements, like a for loop or an if statement. If you have an init, like a condition and a post, you will require those semicolons. And in those cases, those aren't statement terminators anymore. They're statement separators. Yes, it gets confusing, and you need them there as well. Welcome to the confusion of all of this. Is the stream cutting out for people, apparently? I apologize if it is. I hope you're hearing me loud and clear. And I am rambling at a mile a minute. Because my mind is like that, like a... Okay, that's good. So it's just someone was saying anyway in the chat. Right. Let's carry on. So the rambling does sound clear. Thank you for telling me this. This is very good to know. Now, it is a very interesting question, and this is still the very first thing I've been talking about, what I've been implementing. So this strict style is the mediary ground. It is this already starting to waste, allowing for different brace styles, allowing for many different styles at least, but still having amazingly canonical view for the language, which has been at the force in the language. And yeah, I'm not sure. There's one aspect of thinking about removing semicolons, which is purely marketing. And I really hate this line of thought, even though it actually makes sense, is that many people today, you'll see many people complaining like, oh, it's the current year, insert current year. Why do we have semicolons still? Oh, do we even need to do that? And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, for God's sake. So questions, did I remove do? No, do is still in the language. I'll most likely keep it as much as I regret adding it. The Odin spec will be in the works in a couple months' time, especially since the language is effectively done. And this last thing is, seriously, this is the last syntactical question I have. Like, it is seriously like, okay, do I actually go down this route or not? It's the last thing. And I don't want people bike shedding about it, because I'm not joking. Most people's opinions on this topic are dreadful. And they're just like, oh, it's my personal preference. I don't want your person. It's like, yes, but it's more like, yeah, but I'm like, I kind of, people's preferences that I usually trust, I usually want people I have higher respect for. Sorry, I'm just going a bit ramble there. I don't want the anti-wisdom of the crowds going on. So the question someone else says, is this more about what people are used to coding than actual usage? Well, that's a good thing, is with the marketing thing, where you can say we haven't got semicolons anymore, that will actually attract a lot of people. Now, the problem is that the type of people you want to attract? Seriously, it's yeah. It's the insert current year. Why do we still have insert highly effective thing with slightly outdated aesthetics? Oh, who knows? But no, seriously, that's how a lot of people work. I actually do wonder what proportion of programmers that actually is. Is it 50%? Is it 10%? Is it just a very vocal minority, or is it actually a majority? And if it is a majority, from a marketing standpoint, if I'm trying to market Odin, damn, that's a bad thing to do. One thing already in Odin that many people put off by are these colons everywhere. Some people say that makes it so damn ugly to read. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, to me, I don't see the ugliness. It's not because I'm used to it. I'm like, I think it's quite clean. The semantics make sense because I don't actually think in syntax. I think in semantics usually a lot of the time. So the semantic difference from these colons, oh my God, it makes loads of sense. You've got the name, you've got a colon, you've got a type, you've got an equals or a colon, and then you've got expression. That is literally what it's explaining. It's this magic where you can make an optional of the type declaration. So the semantics are very nice and fluid. Not fluid, well defined, and allow for a lot of fluidity in usage. So that makes sense. Now you're right. If I'm going to have to deal with a lot of those people, regardless in your language, and like someone like how do you explain it? Like Rust can get away with it because Rust's main argument is safety, whatever that actually means, because it's extremely ill-defined. Yes, it is ill-defined. Don't tell me it isn't, because I'm like, I'm not getting a rant for that. What's another language? Swift, many people like. It's like usually the big argument for Swift is, look, has all these modern language features, and it's all compatible with Objective-C. And look, it's much better than Objective-C. Objective-C is ugly. I actually don't mind Objective-C, to be honest with you. There are aspects about it which I think are stupid, but hey-ho. What else is there? Popular languages nowadays. Go's good one, but the three things that Go usually has is it's very simple language. It's compiled and statically typed. It's fast compiled language. It's actually not that fast as a compiler, but you can actually make Go a hell of a lot faster to compile. They just haven't, which is a bit worrying. Partially, but not much. What else is there? I think they've also done it because they want to make it clarity to read, and they'd rather be like, oh, we'd rather it be 2 times or 3 times slower, the compiler, as long as we can actually maintain the code. And okay, that's the okay argument. But yeah, you could make it faster. What else is there? Other popular languages nowadays. There's Kotlin and all that Scala and stuff. They're just like Java replacements with more terse syntax and more syntactic sugar everywhere. Or syntactic sugar, if I was going with the Lisp. What I'm trying to think. But you can see where the marketing's come from. And many of it is purely aesthetic, because that's the first thing that people go on and like hit. There's the aesthetics. It's like many people see Odin and say, oh, this colon looks ugly. And usually when they mean ugly, they mean, this looks unfamiliar to me, therefore I don't like it. They don't actually mean ugly, but that's the first thing they mean, is they're unfamiliar with that. And it goes where? Someone's joking says, without semicolons, you can attract droves of Emac Lisp programmers. Oh, good God, no. Oh, well, I could. Those droves, those dozens of programmers who still like the Mac Lisp. There's dozens of them. But you're right. If you spend more than 15 minutes to understand exactly why it's colon equals, yeah, exactly. It makes semantic sense. It's like, oh my, and then people go, oh, that's pretty elegant. And yeah, and you understand why every other declaration is different, because value declarations are actually quite different semantically from every other kind of declaration. But yeah, you're right. People judge things by looks all the time. You judge a book by its cover. You honestly do. And I don't think that's a bad thing. There are many books behind me in my bookshelf. Some of them, I wanted that particular book, but I bought the book also. Like, I know I wanted it to be pretty. That's not me being like stupid. Like, I know I bought the book for the contents, but I also bought that particular edition, that printing, because it was pretty. And it's kind of like, okay, great. But it's like, yeah, but there's a reason why aesthetics are important. Like, it does actually signal that someone has actually taken their time to make this look good. And it means they've taken quality of care. There's a signal behind what the aesthetics are. But you can signal good aesthetics, and then actually at the end of the day it's crap. It's like, okay, no one's going to be using it eventually. Yes, it attracts people in it, and then it's actually a shit product. And I don't want Odin to be anything like that. Odin is actually a really high quality language in design. The compiler is a different thing entirely. Half of that problem is LLVM, other half is just me like, okay, I still need to do a lot of work on it. But the actual language I think is honestly, and I'm not trying to like, oh, it's my language. It's great, but no. I've actually tried to make Odin extremely well designed and can do that. And yeah, you're right, Ben. Anyway, yes, you can cheat about this by having a pretty website. Yes, that is where in the future, I will need to get someone to make a very good website for me, and I mean a very pretty one, because the one I've written at the moment was literally a hack. I modified my blog and made it work in an Odin style. It is not the great thing in the world. I was having a minor consistency. I just hacked it together in an afternoon. It's not bad looking. Like, you can look at the Odin website. And this is in dark mode. We have dark mode because everyone wants dark mode nowadays. It looks fine. It's clear, but it ain't that pretty at all. The blog is absolutely useless. The downloads is fine. The GitHub page, yeah, and you've got like an overview which is it's full and complete. The content's okay, but the layout is awful. So I will need someone probably to help me properly make this look good, which is fine. But yeah, it's one of those things where, again, that's more, aesthetics. That's what happens when you're trying to advertise and market something. So that's the first thing I said I've implemented. And I've just been talking for the past, God knows how long it is now. Is there a timer somewhere? Yes, the past 20 minutes. I apologize for that. That's a lot of time. Okay, let's go talk about the next thing I've added into Odin, which is, again, still viewable on, let's move this across here so I can just find it. Here it is. Here was the example I showed on Twitter for people, and that is the Odin Test. And now, yes, Odin Test has some fancy things too. You can annotate a procedure. We didn't say it's a test procedure. It must have a certain signature to it, of course, and you can use it as a test thing. And this is very nice to do. And the testing infrastructure is now in the back end. Lovely, works fine. Which is what we're doing tonight, by the way, is we're going to make the testing infrastructure better, because we now need to actually have an equivalent thing from our panic. We need a recover. We need to be able to recover from our panics, because a lot of things when you're doing tests, they aren't just they're not just pure things, like you're not just returning a value and checking what the value is. Sometimes you'll have crashes, and they are things you need to actually test for, and you need to be able to recover from them. So one of the things is that, what was I trying to think? Yeah. So one of the things with all this is that you need to be able to recover from a panic, and you need to recover in a certain way. The cheat you could do is you could run every single test in a thread, and if that thread crashes, that's fine. You can just test that. So that gives kind of a bit annoying me, even though I know where it's from. It's very difficult, and that's just a cheat. I don't want to have literally spawn thousands of threads, just all have a thread pool to do the work and to do it that way. That's not a very good way of doing it. I actually want to test failures properly. So asserts and panics are either things you need to be able to recover from, and you'll need to have some recovery system. Now, the way you're going to have to recover from them is you're going to have to actually create a vectored exception handling system. And you're going to have to do that to the vectored exception handler in Windows. I'm talking about Windows at the moment. So it's a bit more difficult on how you're doing it. Now for Linux and such, it would be the SIG actions. SIG segmentation fault. I can't even think now. Whatever it is, I completely forgot what it is in Linux. But yeah, I mean, Windows, I know for sure it's in kernel 32 in that package, and it's the add vectored exception handler stuff, and that's what you're doing, which is fine. Okay, someone said, oh yeah, and you could have a magical. Oh yes, there's a brilliant joke here. Sorry, Ben's had a brilliant joke. I didn't notice it. Sorry. It says, oh, you could just have a magic list of features it has and never show any of the source code, and then a link to an empty repo so it can't be falsified. Oh, what language was that? Oh yes, that was VLang. Yes, for people who didn't know this, when VLang was first advertised, it showed all of these amazing, impressive results which many of which were actually impossible because I was actually judging by it. And I'm like, yeah, the claims he's stating and what he actually is stating he's done are literally don't add up. And I even had the famous issue that I posted, which is issue 35. And people, like, someone even made a website about it. I'm like, what the flippin' heck? But yeah, it was pretty much like, yeah, the language does now exist, and people have actually pretty much implemented the compiler for him along the way, and people have gone there. But again, the initial claims don't work. But yeah, so let's get actually working on recover, and let's do this well. Now, I do actually have some issues which I already know what are going to be happening with this exception handler. And the problem with this exception handler approach is that it will override things that already handle exceptions. So if you're using third-party code, it's going to cock things up. So I will state this bluntly, I don't know how I'm going to handle that. Seriously, I actually don't know how to handle it. So let's carry on. We will want to system Windows. That's fine. I'm then going to call this Win32 because it's a bit short and it's a bit cleaner to me because I know when I read it. Okay, so let's sure I have actually got the actual procedure in here. So add vectored exception handler. Is it that or is it big capital letters? I'm just going to check by doing this. Yeah, it's okay. It is actually in there. Okay, I was just checking. I cannot remember what the signature is. So let's go to. Sorry. Here's the code I'm looking at. So it takes in a long, which is the first. First in order was handler should be called. If the parameter is non-zero, the handler is the first handler to be called. I think if the parameter is 0, the handler must be the last handler to be called. Yes, and it should be 0. You're right. It should be 0. So okay. So we're going to have to do. This is the handle 0, and then we need to have a procedure. Oh damn it! Why did I get rid of that? I need to figure out what the signature is. The signature is this, which is a vectored extension handler. There we go. Magic, isn't it? We're going to call this the. What do you call this? The Windows exception handler. It's not a type anymore. It's that and that. We're then going to do Win32 on everything like so. And then we're going to pass that into there. Hey presto, we've now got add exception handler. So I'm going to make this a little bit wrapped up to make things go well. I'm going to make, we need a handle for this. So this is the Windows exception handle. And this is a Win32 handle. So we're now going to do, I'm trying to think, what's the opposite? If you're going to, yeah, just, okay. Add exception handler. I'm going to keep that blank. I'm then going to put that in there. Make this then be global and be done. Done. This is just for Windows for the time being. I'm not caring about other operating systems. And then I'm going to remove the exception handler like so. And what we need to do with the exception handler is we need to make sure that this is even set to begin with. So if this doesn't equal nil, I'm going to do nil, and then we can go to Win32, and then we're going to do remove vectored exception handler. Oh, handler, and it's that, and I'm just resetting it there. And there's going to be a value. Is it okay? Is it an okay value? No, it's a D word. So res. Now I'm just going to assert res, which is going to be hilarious. Like you're asserting on a. Yeah, we're asserting this is fine. But yeah, this is one of those things like stuff like this. Okay, so quick thing to reminder for people, if people do not know my opinion on exceptions, this is actually not a common opinion. I know it may even confuse people. Short answer is, I've written a blog post about it, and actually it was originally 2 comments, which I had stick together, and there were just 2 comments on a GitHub article. I did it. What my view about exceptions is that it's not the, I'll just read it here explicitly. Whereabouts is it? Did I actually say it in this article? No, I said it in another article, actually. The explicit other reason, which was in is it The Essence of Programming? Was it that? No, was it under this? No. Where did I put it? No, it was on the road to Zig. So I was actually critiquing Zig. Yes, that was what I did, exceptions here. So in error handling, one of my biggest issues with the design of the Zig language is, which demonstrated in this talk, is that error values are built into the language itself. In a previous article, I discussed the issues with exceptions, which is this article here. And I discussed the issues, error handling and error propagations. Zig's error types have a similar syntax to exceptions. And in many languages, of course, I mean, not exceptions, the usage of them, but they do not share the same internals as exceptions, in that they are handled as part of the return value rather than unwinding this, like through unwinding the step, or a similar mechanism. Now, Andrew comments that people are lazy, which they are. I'm not disagreeing with that, and will do whatever the default way is. So why not at least get them to handle the things correctly and make handling errors fun? I'm just going to read quite six. It makes so people clear what my view is upon this. Firstly, error handling should not be fun. It should be painless. It's akin to saying paying taxes should be fun. It'll never be fun, but you can remove a lot of the drudge work from it. Secondly, as I previously noted, my issue with exception-based or exception-like errors is not the syntax, which is what many people actually think. I disagree with them, but it's not. But it's actually how they incur error propagation. The error propagation promotes a culture of pass the error up the stack for someone else to handle the error. I hate this culture, and I do not to encourage it at the language level. Handle errors there and then don't pass them up the stack. You make your mess, you clean it. Error propagation is fine within a library, package, module, whatever you want to call it. But you ought not to encourage propagation across library boundaries. There are so many issues I've seen in real life which lead to so much crappy software, which leads to it just being left to someone else to handle. And this error propagation also has a tendency to remove information about the type of error as it is reduced to a simpler error type up the stack, which is what Zig's error types do. So this is not in the text here, but Zig's error types are effectively a giant enum, like a global enum, where if you create a new error, it just adds it to the enum for you. Personally, I find this like, what? I understand why it comes from. It actually comes from Andrew's personal style from Zig. This is what he used to do in C code. He used to have just a giant error number, and I understand the design of it, but it's not necessarily. It's very idiosyncratic of Andy. It really is. It's clearly like, yeah, that's Andy's style. I'm not saying that's not a bad thing. That's just, yeah, you can tell someone's style. It's like, it works for him and it works well. So that's not a complaint. So carrying on with the sentence, I was saying there are so many issues I have seen in real life with the crap software. Error propagation also has a tendency to remove the stack, which is simpler type stack. Yeah, if you are designing a language to aid in productivity, producing quality software, which is one of the aims that Zig wants to do, especially in this talk. Don't add a core feature to the language that encourages sloppy habits. So again, Odin's approach to error handling is to treat errors as nothing special. Errors are just handled like any other piece of code in conjunction with Odin's multiple return types, enumerations, unions, many other features such as like named return values. This means the user can return extra information, including error values, alongside the normal return values if wanted, and handle them accordingly. I'm not going to give the user a default way of doing things because I have found in practice this is very rarely useful because there's so many different things where you actually want to do, and I'm not going to try and force it. Just do it how you think is better. There will be different conventions even in the core library because different things require things. So we're going back to exceptions. My criticism is not on the implementation. Actually, I have not really much of an issue of software exceptions technically because they're slightly different to how hardware exceptions work, but hardware exceptions are useful and most people agree they are. So what I'm doing here with the recover is thing like I actually quite like the Go where you've got the defer, panic, recover mechanism. I'm not a big fan of how they do defer, but it makes sense, especially because it's garbage collection and also it's function exit, which is just like, what? I know why, but why? But whatever. We're going there. I'm just going to take a sip now because I've just been talking quite a long time. Again, tonight's drink that we are drinking, I will say we, just me, that's the royal we, is Old Original by Everard's of Leicestershire. This is a rich and fruity ruby ale. It is absolutely wonderful on tap, but of course I've not been to a pub in nearly a year now. So, hey ho. Right, back to the actual implementation of this. So this is the general way of handling stuff, but it doesn't actually tell you anything. Okay, how are we going to handle this? So it's really simple. We've now got the exception info, and I actually added all the pointers here, and it's a big record of all stuff. There's an exception record, which is this thing here. It's got loads of information in it, and many of the different parameters, because you can add more parameters to your thing. And there's also a context record, which has got all of the registers stuff in it, if I remember correctly. I clearly cleaned this out. I haven't implemented it because it does change on different platforms. I know for x86 I could write it. I haven't written it in this code. I have written it somewhere else because I was implementing effectively. I was experimenting with this a few months ago. I was trying to do coroutines with exception handling as well, and bloody hell did it become a nightmare. And I went, I'm giving up on this. So I didn't copy the code in, but it was like, oh god, it was a nightmare. Where was it? Okay, back to the test little thing. Let's do the implementation here. So the difference here is you need to have, to make sure is the exception continue search. Oops, let's do that. Exception continue search. Yes, I do define it here, and yes, it's fine. I want continue search. Okay, hunky dory that is. Going to switch this. First off, we're going to continue search because that means it just goes on to the search of the thing that happens with the things that goes on. Wonderful and wunderbar. Right, so I don't know why I'm saying wunderbar. That was happening last stream as well. I'm not even German by any stretch of the imagination. I can't even speak German except that one word and maybe Guten Tag. I can speak better broken French than that. It's just not going to French. What was it? Exception. Where was the... Let's go to the records here. Yes, so it was exception record. That's what it was called. And then I know it was exception code. Now, because it's just a normal enum, we don't have to test all the cases because we don't. And that should have a Win32 on there. I think I've got all of the other cases on there. Let me just check. Exception. I think it's exception data type. I think one of them is. Yes, I do have them all here. Not all of them, but many of them. Right. Now, which one of these do I actually care about? So I'm just going to put them all in and deal with it. Data type misalignment. Yes. Access violation, yes. Illegal instruction, yes. Array bounds exceeded, maybe. Integer divided by 0, no. Integer overflow, definitely not. Stack overflow, yes. Status privilege instruction, no. Okay, so why have I cut out the ones I did? Because they are probably more pain than they're worth. Right. So, I've separated all these out into different cases. I can make them one thing case, but what I can do here is I can make it give them better error messages than I have. So each of these I can then go to, let's just call this internal handler. Let's just do this. I'm going to make sure it's got the calling convention of contextless rather than standard call because I want contextless. We're also going to have other things there as well. For instance, like yeah, I'm going to have a message type in here. This is going to be different type of message types, and all I'm going to do is convert these to the different strings. So if we just go plop, like so, we can probably just have different errors going on. So we can have different standardizations. So this will just be a standard error. I'll just call this error kind. Yeah. Error kind, lowercase that. And then we're also going to have, the message in there as well. So this would be the message string C. I can write this. I'm good at this. Yeah, sorry, someone asked, yes, defer is in Odin, X is scope exit, not function exit. I can go. Yes, correct. Sorry, I forgot to answer that question. Right, we've got the internal handler. What else do we have? Standard errors. What else kind of errors could we go for? We've got illegal instruction, yeah. Illegal instruction, because then we can actually have the address that the illegal instruction happened at. We also probably want segmentation fault, which is the same as an illegal instruct. Is that? No, it's the same as access violation, which is segmentation fault. They are the same thing. So I'm just trying to think in my head. And then we've got array bounds, which is just a normal thing. They don't need to have to say where. And stack overflow, yeah, it's the same. So there's only like 3 different standard error types that I can think of, which is lovely. Who'd have guessed? We'll probably want maybe OS in here as well, just for the time being. Just keep it thinking it through. We're going to have the handler here. The handler we will want is, think this through. So we want the exception info in there. We want the error kind. So this is standard. Yeah. And I'm just going to give it a thing. So unaligned, also do all lowercase. So unaligned memory, memory access. Yeah. Because it's a data type misalignment, so it's unaligned memory access. Yeah, I don't think of any better name than that, can you? So this one is going to be, that is an segmentation fault. And this is going to have a specific message of segmentation fault at address, and then I'm going to put the address in there. This is an illegal instruction, which is, illegal instruction at address, whatever the address is. Array bounds checking. This is an out of bounds array. The thing is, that's not necessarily what I want. And then this one's going to be stack overflow. Stack overflow. Okay, so you can see what I've done with the different handlers, of course. Lovely, isn't it? Like that. So now we can have a switch on the error kind. Oops. Error kind. So we got standard. It'll complain at me if I don't have them all on. Segmentation fault. And then we can do different things. So I'm just going to do print line here. And then we're going to have the message. And we're going to have the message on each of them. For these two, though, they're going to have a slightly different one. So I'm going to do printf message, and then it's going to be %f(x), I think. New line. I might be able to do %p, actually, thinking about it. %p should work, right? Let me just check how thumped is actually implemented. Yes, I've completely forgot how I implemented my own language. Yes, I do. If it doesn't have a hash or verb, then yeah, it does do the prefix. Yeah, I'm just double checking my own code. We want to get the exception info here. And then what else do? We want to get the... Oh, I just realized I don't think that's going to work for that. I don't remember how to do the segmentation fault thing. So I'm just going to do a legal instruction. And I'm not writing when it's at, because I think I need to access the registers, which means, hey, the thing I said I hadn't written yet, because I've got a pain in the arse, yeah, we're going to accept that. This is going to be exception information, I think. Yeah, exception information. And I think it's the second element, so number 1 I actually want. It gives me a pointer, yeah. Okay, so this you actually need to get from the context records here, and I don't remember which thing it is, so I'm just going to just do that and go I don't know. Is that something like that? I don't know, guys. And then what I'm going to do here is OS exit 1. So this is not a recovery. People are, oh my goodness, you haven't recovered. What are you doing? Well, I'm just proving that I've actually got the right testing first. So this is not recovery. This is aborting and making sure everything else is correct. So what have I done wrong here? Yeah, I'm going to do... Oh, is it just a raw pointer? I thought it was a handle, but okay. Win32 dot handle. Like so. Thank you. We can then... Actually, I don't need the extra braces around that. What we're talking about, it's not C. E-print line message. Context doesn't work because there's no context system in here. Okay. I swear I did something in the runtime for this. So runtime... oh god, that's really old runtime. I should probably just delete that code by now because it hasn't been used in like 3 years. It's did, kid. It's did, Jim. And doesn't we know it? I don't know what that accent is. It's like a mix of like 5 different accents. It's just so bad. That's what happens when you're drinking, but you're not that drunk yet. Right, so hopefully people are enjoying this stream tonight. We've got a lot of people listening tonight. 47 concurrent, at least at the moment. 48 sometimes, yeah. Pretty nice. People listening to my driver one. Now, let's actually look at the research. So, okay, someone's saying, so let me get this straight. This is basically just some nicer info, exception info for panics and not an actual exception error handling. Yes, it will be exception handling. Yes, it will be. So I'm just doing the default crap shit at the moment. Like the shit at the moment. It's going to be a recover. So the idea is, right, okay, so this is the idea. You're going to get, you're going to have this in your code. Yeah? If error doesn't equal nil, this is your recovery position. And then you could do something in your code and you might just do panic. Yeah? Whatever. And if there's been an error, you'll be able to recover for it. And all it's going to do is go back here and do that. So this recovery position, where the recover is going to actually do some very clever things. It's effectively going to do a long jump. Not necessarily implemented with long jump, but that's what you're going to be doing. Now, if that makes any sense. So I'm just handling it this way around first because I'm trying to demonstrate, especially for many writers who have never actually written this type of code before, how you'd implement the things of actually like an exception handler using the vectored exception handling. So it gets very careful. This is the kind of the system I want. I want a recovery system where I can say, hey, let's go recover back to this point where it happened all before, and we go back to this thing and said, yes, there was an error. By default, it would just skip over it like a normal set jump and long jump thing that happens. But hopefully that makes sense. Sorry, this is very confusing, and I'm just doing it. I'm just doing the nonsense thing here at the moment. I'm just trying to get debugging because I'm trying to show on stream. Runtime call. I just want to show stuff to people. That's what I want to do. Show how it works, not more than anything else. Down there's loads of crap. What is that big table for? I can't remember. There's a big table in there. Oh yeah, it's the UTF-8 crap. Yeah, of course it is. It's not that. There is a print thing. Here we go. Print crap. Here it is. Me smart. I remember where I put it all. And there's a print string. Of course there is. This is under. We don't need OS. We'll keep OS. Yeah. Go to runtime. And every time it has here, we've now just got runtime.print. Let's say print strings. Yeah. And then we've got a new line. And the same with this. We then have runtime print string. We can put the message in there. Let's put print strings because I'm going to just put space in there. And then can we do a print I64? No, print... let's just do print. Yeah, let's just do this. Screw it. It's not going to look pretty, but... Oh, let's just do it like this. I can't be asked to handle this correctly. But yeah, that was the code I kind of want to go on here. It says there's no context. Really? Yeah, I know what I need to do. Every single exit implementation cannot have a context to it. So every single one, contextless. Let's do that on every single one, every single implementation of it. But it doesn't have it because it needs to be, but... There we go. Okay, now it solves the problem because now we need to be able to do it in a thing. We have now got this. We're going to add our exception handler here in this code. We're then going to remove the exception handler in this code. And then what we're going to do is, if true, just make, going to do panic. I'm going to say hello. We should panic, hello, and then it's gone something wrong here. It doesn't seem to have handled it, and I should be able to go end. It doesn't hit it, and we've got panic going on, and the panic is, at the moment, probably not throwing the right exception. That's what's going wrong, and I don't know if I've necessarily handled it. There is one way to find out, by the way. You just do this. Exception handler. And it's called the exception handler, which is lovely. Lovely to know. We're going to do that, and then we need to print I64. Why not? Runtime. Print that, and we're going to put the exception code in there. This is all like very low level code. We've now told us what the error code we've actually handled, and I don't know what that code is. Isn't that lovely? I need to turn that into to hex. What's that? What is this in hex? Oh, it's OXCC3. Okay, well, it's the one we don't even handle. Okay. Okay, so for people who are confused, is Odin going to handle exceptions? The answer is no, Odin will not have exceptions at the language level, but of course exceptions exist, so you need some way to handle them. So the reason why I'm handling all of this is purely because of testing. If something crashes inside of a test, you need to recover from it, even if that is just like, just okay, done, we're just ignoring this and carrying on. We want to exception Win32 this crap and find out what this exception is. We need to actually handle another one. I don't think I actually have it in here, but the one I want is this. And I just want to have a general panic. I don't know what it is called. So let me just check on the interwebs which one this is. 132. It's, I know what the error code is, but what's it called? Does anybody know the same thing, like what it's called, the exception? Maybe it's just easier if I just search. I know, sorry, people can't see what I'm doing, but whatever. Sure up. That's a technical term for it. Okay. I think I know what it is. It is breakpoint, because that's what it is. It's a debug print, I think it is. I found them all, by the way. There's a hell of a lot more than this. I don't think it's just breakpoint that I'm looking for, because what does panic actually do in Odin? Core panic? Is there a panic in here? Error checks under, I guess. built-in. Sorry, I can't even remember anyone's thing. It's partial tiredness. So Panic has a default assertion failure procedure. And who actually implements that here? And I do a debug trap. No wonder I do a debug trap, because a debug trap, just by the looks of it, does a breakpoint. Because you can then just go over it. Because a Panic could just effectively be assert, so I just do it that way. So let's just implement that there. And let's handle that correctly. Like so. I'm going to have to add this into here, and this is just a debug trap. Look, we've hit debug trap now, so it actually even gets called here. Internal handler. We actually get the correct message. So hopefully people are understanding what is going on now. So now we've actually handled the Panic correctly. We've not handled it, but we haven't recovered from it. We've handled it, which is not saying it's recovery. Okay, making sense? Good. Because it's not making any sense to me. Actually, it is. I'm just tired. It has been a long day, but hey, ho, we can do this. We can do this tonight because it is Odin's Day. It is Odin's Day, and we don't want to go into Thor's Day to do this. No. Not us, not the sun. No. The father. The All-Father, of course. And we want to do this correctly. So we need to make sure that we are talking about this correctly. It's very annoying, I know. But hey-ho, we need to carry on. But again, we need a way of recovering from this, because there are cases where there are panics which you don't recover from correctly. I know there are a hell of a lot more of these things to do. I probably shouldn't be using debug trap. I wonder what, if I use trap, which one, so I'm just going to undo all this. Which one does it actually do? Okay, so we now got exception handler, and we'll convert that to hex, and it's none of them. I think it's a legal instruction it becomes. Yes, in legal instruction, yeah. So that's what a trap does. Becomes an illegal instruction. This is what LLVM decides, rather than a debug trap. I'm not sure which one's technically better. I think debug trap is technically what you want, because it is technically a panic in your user level code rather than an illegal instruction. You won't be able to tell what the difference is, because you need a way of setting it. Theoretically, there are all loads of status codes in Win32, obviously, aren't there? But who knows? Okay. Now that we got this, we want a way of... I may actually have to add an intrinsic to LLVM, I'm thinking. Might. Not necessarily. I want to re-implement effectively long jump and set jump. But the problem is, how do I implement that? It's going to be fun. Because I want to make it so it's indirect, so it's at a certain level. So you'd have to do it in the user level code, which means you're going to have to get the address space of the previous stack of where it was called. Goodness sake. Does anybody know? Clearly someone knows. Just does anyone in the audience know? I think it's the address of the return address that you want. No? Or is it just the return address you want? No, I think it's the address of the return address. That doesn't make any sense. No. Right. I'm trying to think. Okay, how would I do this in assembly? Okay, now how do I map that to C or even Odin, effectively, in my head? I'm trying to figure out, okay, how do I get back to that point where you're doing the recovery? Because you can remember, what I'm trying to do is I'm now adding this exception handler. Just pretend it's actually been added entirely. Done. We've got debug trap, and we don't have any more thing going on. There is no ETA for Odin 1.0. It's not years away, no, but could be a year away. Honestly, like a year away. I was planning on trying to get it done by like this end of year, But like the language is effectively done, by the way. The actual language itself is done, but there's a hell of a lot more to do. You have got the compiler to work on and get that up to scratch to make sure we've got rid of the books. We've got specification writing to do and loads of other documentation to write. We've got the core library to develop a lot and all of the other stuff on top of it. We've got all the general ecosystem, other tooling as well. We've then got also the website to do and stuff like that, loads of other marketing in general, and a lot of other ways of actually getting to customer support in general. So there's a lot before we got to get to 1.0. Not the language, which is about done, as I say it. There's a lot. And it is very weird. Like I know people want hard address. Like I'm not working to a hard date because I know I won't achieve it because I don't think I could. Yeah, if that makes any sense. Okay, so effectively what I want is the parent's stack frame and I want to recover to that point. The easy thing that I can think in my head is you would actually want to do a long jump, which is not necessarily a good thing. I'm just trying to figure out what the best way of dealing with this. It's, I'd say about a year or so, yeah. We've got a lot to do, but like before then, before 1.0, like it'll be pretty damn usable already. People are already using it. I'm already using it professionally every day, literally, for like, Embergen. For people that know, I work on Embergen, which is the Django FX's real-time volumetric fluid simulation for fire and smoke in films and games. Yes, that is the tagline I am now saying. But yeah, it's one of those things. And I'm pretty happy with the language as a whole. There's not much needed to add to it exactly, but hey ho. Right, can anyone else think about error handling? About how do you recover? I don't want to get the last error. I'm trying to figure out how to do it in a decent way as well, because there is it's effectively what you're doing is a try catch block, but you're not doing a try catch block. You're trying to do it in a very weird sense. You're trying to do it in a here's the place where it's going to catch it, and now you've got to deal with it in some way. And you've got to deal with it in a way that makes sense rather than this structured system. Because this structured system is you've got a handler and you're doing it in this place where you're doing this handling. And then the syntax that I want may not be necessarily clean. And I may actually have to do the add exception handler and remove exception handler every single time in that single block. And then it will revert to where the code to handle the thing is, if that makes any sense. I'm just trying to think of a way. The reason why I want to do this is purely you've got a way to recover from panics, and also it's purely, mainly, the 99% of the reason I'm doing this is for testing, like the testing system in Odin now. And I'm just trying to think of a way of dealing with it. It's fun, I can tell you that. I'm just trying to think of it from a logical standpoint. So how do I do this? No, it does effectively come. You're right. You just start pushing the stat pointer. Yeah, you just actually doing that. The IP register. You're right. Yeah, but I'm just trying to think of a way of dealing with it properly in a decent way, syntactically, semantically, and implementation. And there are like a dozen ways of dealing with this, and I'm not particularly sure what the best one of doing is. So who knows what's going on? Except me, of course. Except me. I know what's going on. To be very careful. Yes. So yeah. Yeah, this is something where I'm like, okay, so someone else is saying in a completely separate chat, which is not public to most people. I'm not trying to implement exceptions. Be very careful. I'm just trying to handle exceptions, handle them and recover from them, especially when it comes to a testing system. So this approach may only be useful for a test, is what I'm trying to say, and I don't know what else I could do for it, at least. And yeah, I'm just trying to figure out how to do it, because it is really, really weird distinction, because I can think about how you could do this different ways. Yeah, drawing out a Milton may actually help. Actually, no, it may do. I'm going to have to go for literally 2 minutes. I'll be right back after these commercial messages from, you've heard it, static noise. Oh, we gotta love that static noise of nothing. And we're back. If you can hear the jangling of my microphone sound, which is like probably over a decade at this point, and yes, it's very creaky, which probably means it just needs some grease. But okay, I'm back. Okay, here we go. So we are now even going to think about how we're doing this. So the issue I have isn't having this in every single block. Very, very careful. The problem I'm having at the moment is fundamentally how do I recover and make it I'm not even joking. How do I get a try except here? And I don't care what the error is, I just want to get to the accept block and just put it round. That's what I want. Try and accept. Or try and catch. Or whatever you want to bleeming call the damn flipping thing. And I just want to deal with that. You may think, what about a finally in there or a else or whatever. I don't care. Oh, yes, you can't see it. I need to change the screen. Yes, there you go. Thank you, OBS, for being absolutely useless. It should be able to think. Yes, as I said, I effectively need to try catch around this block. I'm not bothered about the exception handler wrapping all of this. I just want to be able to catch when things crash. And I have to recover. Notice the word recover, literally go into the catch block. I don't care if there's memory leaked. I don't care if there's anything else like this. This is purely not purely, but mainly for testing and the testing environment that I have built now into Odin Test. So that is all I am trying to do it for. That is the main purpose. I do not want this as a way of people actually handling errors in a system. This is just ones I want to actually get around it. So the easier way of dealing all of this is, once you've now got into the internal handler, which is this thing here, you should be able to get out of the main thing and into a different different point here. Someone's saying this is an ASMR code stream. Yes. Do I have to go there? There are very other things, and I'm whispering, and we go the very high pitch and the ASMR. I literally just don't. I don't really get it, but whatever. I'm not going to go into the ASMR. I literally don't know what the ASMR stuff is, and we're just going to be clanking against this phone now and going. Oh yes, that's what's happening, and I'm going to go for it. Right, we're stopping that now because I have never experienced it. I'm still what's going here, but yeah, run all the control through flow through SEH, and yeah, that is actually one way of dealing with it. That isn't a bad way of doing it. Clearly, there's no try and catch in Odin. Sorry, I'm just getting rid of that. That's just me explaining what I want. But it is literally, it's just to catch crashes and nothing else, and purely for the panics and saying, yes, there's been a crash right here. Okay, so when you need to treat the catch as a label registering as an address on the stack, and then anything in the try block that just pushes that on the stack, and any panics that use it. Yeah, so you're right. I may just need to have labels. I don't have labels in Odin. This is the problem. So I probably need an intrinsic to do this. So you could use the top of the stack for the panic. Yeah, that's correct. And then just go to that. So the things which are going to do this here is for... So I'm just laughing at there's just some of the comments here. It's just quite funny. I'm just trying to... I'm not trying to implement the shittest implementation. I'm just trying to do it. So we got this far here. We are this far. Great. We've got somewhere. We have actually caught the exception handler. Now, when we've got this exception, we now need to go, right, how do we get back out? Now, this isn't a problem. If we are single-threaded, obviously, we can just cheat a lot. Now, the problem you're right is LLVM. And how do we deal with this in LLVM? And my worry is I'm going to have to add some intrinsics to do this in assembly code, if this is even possible. And that's my worry. If we look at all of the LLVM stuff, and remember, this may not even work with the current version of LLVM that we have in here, we've got return address intrinsics. They are, return address intrinsics, which are here, and you can even have levels in them now, which I never thought they never did. This must be a new feature. Must have been like LLVM 11 or 12 or something like that, which is a new thing. And you've got address of the return address, which is, where's the address of the return address? Where's all this stuff? But hey ho, let's carry on with all this, shall we? But yeah, it's one of those where I know what I'm trying to do. I am trying to go to, okay, we have now stored this recovery point, and it can just be a linked list effectively, is what I'm going to say. Because you have different points in the stack. Okay, ignore me. Okay, we'll just say it's a single variable. We're going to recover, and we're going to recover back to that point. And then when we're recovered back to that point, we just state where we're going to. So there are two ways of handling this. The way in my perfect world is we would actually just say if error, whatever that error thing is, recover, error doesn't equal nil, this is the block that we want to handle the recovery from. And then whatever happens else here, it does it. It just sets what the error exception handle is, that all this is magical, and does it there. I'm thinking that this is probably not what I want. When we are now adding this as an exception handling block, we are then going to have to deal with this interestingly. Now, as people probably know, no, we don't want that. We just want the LLVM crap here. In LLVM, they do have all the exceptions, of course. And they've got all like the trampoline intrinsics and such here, where you do all the trampolines. Now, this is where theoretically I could deal with this. But I don't know. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah. I've actually never used the intrinsic the trampoline intrinsics. That's what I'm trying to say. So shall we just try and literally just copy this? There are no the LLVM and exception handling. Yay! What are these? I'm just going to find out. Let's just read the documentation because it's not SJLJ. I just want vector instructions. English is going out of my things. Yeah, there is probably a landing pad stuff. Yes, there is. There's the landing pad instruction. And it's an instruction. Great. It's an instruction. Oh, sorry. I'm just a bit annoyed. I may need to actually handle this. And clearly, it's probably not the best condition to be in. Just to think this through, I could probably do this better in the morning, where I'm usually a better thinker. But hey ho, this is the entertainment of a stream, is it not? You want to have the gloriousness of hearing my voice and just me cock up a lot, don't you? Just don't you? Sorry, you could probably want this a bit higher size text. Is that enough? Whoa, what's happened here? Okay, so back to the landing pad instruction, which was here. Okay, let's just read through it. So landing pad. Is there anything else above us, or is it just all of the... Yeah, landing pad, here we go. So, landing pad instruction is used by LLVM's exception handling system to specify that a basic block is a landing pad. One where the exception lands and corresponds to the code found in the catch portion of the try-catch sequence. Okay, this is what we want. We do want a landing pad. You're correct. Thank you very much for the thing. Kind of. Depends on if it is the right exceptions. It defines values supplied by the personality function. What the? Personality function upon re-entry to the function. And the return value has the type return type. Personality function. I think this is a new thing. I think. Personality function attribute permits function to specify what function to use for exception handling. Yeah, that's a new thing and I don't really care about it. Arguments. We have a cleanup flag that indicates the landing pad block is a cleanup. Okay, so how would I map that to actually what I want? Which is just a normal blooming call. Yeah, this ain't going to work, is it? Well, it is going to work because the call would be... It's a built-in procedure. You'd have to be a built-in procedure to do this. You could not do this any other way. That's going to be fun. So... Sorry, this is going to be very boring for many people. Me reading documentation. Clearly not the best thing in the world, but it's all here and you can read it better now because I've doubled up the size, so it should be fine on like 720p. Yeah, I know how things work clearly because 1440p monitor is going to be 1080p. So yes. But yeah. So we're going to go back to the ASMR thing and we're just going to go like this and oh yeah. Oh yes, this is so good. And then we've got a ball of yarn here, and just oh yes, and we're gonna go loud, and we're gonna go high. I have no idea. This is just, when I watch them, I go, what the hell is going on here? All it is to me, I'm like, people are just watching this because it's a pretty girl. But I'm like, okay. But clearly they're getting something else out of it than just that, because otherwise they're, you know what I mean? Hint, hint, nudge, nudge. Say no more, say no more. More Monty Python references, the better we can get. Exception handling using the Windows runtime. Well, I know how to do it. Well, do I? Well, let's just read this, and people can now hear me narrating some text. Yes, I know this set jump, long jump is disgusting. Set jump, long jump is, I'm going to state this, I don't mind it that much. I've used it quite a lot. It works quite well. But the problem is that it is very actually restrictive. You can't have a generic thing. You can't have a set jump, long jump, exception handling is dodgy as hell. It is not hierarchical is one issue. And that's my biggest problem with it. It's like, yeah, actually, I need this to be hierarchical effectively. That's the problem. And how else are you going to deal with it? Okay, so let's read through this. So background on Windows exceptions. Interacting with exceptions on Windows is significantly more complicated than on an Itanium C++ ABI platforms. I wonder why, because no comment. The fundamental difference between the two models is that Itanium EH is designed around the idea of successive unwinding, whilst Windows EH exception handling is not. Under Itanium, throwing an exception typically involves allocating thread local memory to hold the exception and calling it into the exception handler runtime. The runtime identifies frames which appropriate exception handling actions and successfully resets the register context of the current thread to the most recently active frame with actions to run. In LLVM, execution resumes at a landing pad instruction, thank you previously for the commenter, which produces register values provided by the runtime. If a function is only cleaning up allocated resources, the function is responsible for calling unwind resume to transition to the next most recently active frame after it is finished cleaning up. Eventually, the frame responsible for handling the exception calls this to destroy the exception, releases its memory, and resume normal control flow. Clearly, our exceptions are not going to have to release the memory. We are literally just wanting to know codes. We are doing exception codes, not pointers. We don't need to store anything else. If we are going to store anything else, we could technically do it through thread local storage that way. And then we don't have to worry and we don't go through the nonsense exception handling system, because thread local storage is a hell of a lot more simpler. Who would have guessed that it would have been simpler? I think everybody ever. Okay, carry on. The Windows exception model does not use these successful register context resets. Instead, the active exception is typically described by a stack frame In the case of the C++ exceptions, the exception object is allocated in stack memory, and its address is passed to throw an exception. The general purpose structured exception handlers, are more analogous to Linux signals, and they are dispatched by user space DLLs provided with Windows. Each frame on the stack has an assigned exception handler and exception handler personality routine, which describes what actions to take to handle the exception. There are a few major personalities for C and C++ code. Blah, 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 we don't care about that. Funklets, we don't really care about that either. In other words, the successful unwinding approach is incompatible with Visual C++ exceptions and general purpose Windows. Therefore, LLVM must use the IR constructions described later in the document to implement compatible exception handling. Obviously, because when you're trying to generalize everything, it doesn't go well. As you could probably guess. So, as most people can probably tell, the trick that I'm trying to do is I'm going to have a way of creating a new block, and then this is going to have to be an intrinsic, isn't it? I'm going to have to build this as an intrinsic into the language, because the only way I could do this in C, if I was doing this in C, I'd use macros like hell, but clearly I can't use macros because I don't have them in Odin. And I don't mind adding an intrinsic, especially for something like this. It makes quite a lot of sense, but good God, it feels horrible to do this anyway. But shall we persevere onwards? And hopefully it doesn't turn into Thor's Day, because you never know. We're on Woden's Day today. We want Woden's Day, not Thor's Day. Yes, we're going insane. Don't worry. It is Odin's Day. He did become the mad one. Because he is. Whoa! We're getting a mythology out. Yes. I sound like a bloody... Okay. I sound insane. Clearly I am, but that's why I called it Odin. To match my insanity. Great. Okay, so now we're going back to what we need to do. We could do the landing pad stuff with LLVM, and that would work. So if we go back to the documentation of the exception handling of the landing pad instruction, which is here. What is an example of this? So we have a pointer. Oh, I'm really not sure what this is. A pointer and an I32. And then we're going to catch on this thing. This, I guess, is a function, isn't it? Landing pad, that is a cleanup. Catch and filter. Maybe I need to see an example, because my brain has just gone... Because I think my brain is having an ASMR stroke. That's what's happening, isn't it? It's just going... Yeah, that's what's happening. That is the technical term for it. Oh my God, help me. Oh. I'm back to my insanity. What was I saying again? Yes. Maybe I need more beer. Now, I don't want to go get another beer. That would just be stupid. Especially this time of night. It is 11:30 for me. Which is quite late. Who'd have known? Who'd have known except me and the clock that's at the top right of this corner, which you cannot see. Whoa! I'm just looking at the code and seeing an example. That's var args. I know what var args are. Variable arguments. Woohoo! Okay, so... Okay, let's actually describe the usage that I actually want to do. There are two ways of dealing with this usage code. There is this recover approach, or, let me make this text a little bit larger for everyone to see. There is the recover approach, or there is the try-catch block approach. Well, let's look at the research for people, so people can actually see where I'm getting my things from. The defer, panic, recover approach, which is done in Go. Now, again, this is not the normal mechanism, but this is necessary. So defer is interesting, because again, defer in Go is function exit, but in Odin it's scope exit, because there's a reason why it is function exit, and it's very, very related to all of this. So this is no problem. Don't really care about this defer. So panic. Panic is a built-in function that stops the ordinary flow of control and begins panicking. When the function f calls panic, a function of f stops. Any deferred functions in f are executed normally, then f returns to its caller. To the caller, f then behaves like a call to panic. The process continues up the stack until all functions in the current Go routine have returned. at which point the program crashes. We are not going to be doing this full-on behavior in Odin because that's just not even actually possible, because we don't have all that nonsense. But yeah, it's just not possible. So panics can be initiated by invoking panic directly. They can also be caused by runtime errors such as out-of-bounds array accesses. Okay, so recover. Recover is a built-in function that regains control of the panic in Go routine. Recover is only useful inside deferred functions. So there's this idiom where they deferred. There is a defer, recover, panic going on. Okay, this defer, panic, and recover. And what you're doing is you're deferring a function where you can recover in it, and if you're able to recover, you've now recovered. Make sense? And then this thing would carry on like normal. So this is just handling the normal code as goes on. So this is the defer, recover, panic. But notice this is slightly different than what I actually wanted. I don't need the defer going in here because the way this panic is happening is it's unwinding the stack, calling all the defers as it goes in, and then magically it goes back into it and then it gets the recover. So it's just calling it as if it's normal. There's no actual special mechanics going on. The recover is just gathering whatever was passed to panic. And that is what it works. It's just an empty interface and you do what it needs to be. The interesting thing is that because this has now been recovered, it'll do what it needs to do. Make sense? What I need to do is none of this syntax is going to be useful, because effectively what I want to do is this thing, which makes no sense when I think about it. What I actually want is I just want to say, in this block, add this exception handling. I want to have effectively, if anything goes wrong, here's the catch block, which doesn't even, this is not even valid Odin code, by the way. This is not valid Odin code, just doesn't work. We want to go to the catch block and just be done. And semantically, I'd rather have that as something like recover, and then have the recovery thing here, where we can then return if necessary. But the recover, it would be a procedure which says if, maybe, and just go back to the point where the recover has been set. So the exception handler has now got a recover point, and you can go back to that instruction. So, you could do that. Because what you would need to do is you need to store the... Oh, you could do this. It's a coroutine. We've just reinvented coroutines, guys. But that's all we need to do. Yeah, that's effectively what I need to do. So I'm just trying to think what the best way of doing this is. Does the catch block need to do anything? The answer is maybe. I'd rather just say something's gone wrong. I want to actually signal that something's gone wrong. I don't actually have to do anything other than saying literally a Boolean, effectively. It'd be nice to say where it went wrong, but the panic system's going to handle all that anyway. So the panicker will do what it needs to be, because the testing system will do it. Okay, so does this need to have anything else in here? Okay, that's good. Good question. Yes, this is what happens when I'm on stream and you sound insane. But I'm trying to make this as most enjoyable for most people who are listening and listening to a stream of a person programming and mostly just going insane. Okay. Graphite Master. Good God, I can't even speak English tonight. I never can any night anyway, but who knows? I'm very good at blagging. Very, very good. Blagging, speaking my first language, of course. Then why not just omit a jump to the panic with info that just ends in an exit? No need to audit path anywhere, and just add intrinsic then. Catch block is just a func call. Yeah. Sounds about right. Because all you'd have to do is once you've had the catch block is just a func call, and it creates a new block. So all it would do is create a new block, so you can actually have you could take a reference to that block, the pointer to the block, And then once it's actually hit that, it's actually stating a value that you've returned. And that value, as long as it's non-zero, I'm going to treat that as a Boolean, you could actually catch it. Yeah, that would work. That would actually work. I don't see much of an issue with that anymore. So you would have to create a new block. You would have to, even if that block didn't do anything. Yeah, that makes more sense. Think about it. Sorry, this has taken a long time just to figure out what I actually wanted and how I wanted to handle it. It didn't need to be anything special. It just needed to be, how would you say it? Dealable. That's one way I could put it, yeah. Let's, of course, implement this first for the LLVM API backend, and not the one I just printed out the text, because that's banana cakes. Speaking of which, I probably should make some banana bread. Banana bread is very nice, and I've got some. Yeah, it's easy to do. Carry on. I've also got bread at the moment. I've got just made some just no knead sourdough that I do. You just mix up the ingredients together, put my starter in there, and just leave it overnight. And then in the morning, I can just knead it, shape it, leave it to get so it's the right size, then bake it in the oven. Problem solved. It's that simple. I also bought some Icon flour the other day, which I just saw it in the supermarket. I went, oh, this is nice. Isn't this the stuff you can get from the ancient Egyptians? Yes, it is. It's that sort of stuff. I have no idea what it tastes like. The Icon flour. You know the. Let me just find the. Here we go. Icon wheat. Oops, that's the exception. That's the wrong page. This is what I was looking for. Sorry, I'm going on a tangent just because my brain is going that way tonight. Yeah, I don't know what this tastes like. I'm guessing it's probably got a much more stronger flavour to it than normal wheat. Oh, it comes from. Originally, apparently, is this where it comes from? So that's in Turkey. So it's Persian, at least. Okay. But that's interesting anyway. So that's what I've got some to do. Yeah, there we go. So I'm going to try some of that out in a few days' time. Just try normal thing. I normally either go like white or whole grain or rye, like different usually combinations of those together. I'm trying now a different thing to see what goes on. I usually also put like rice flour on top as well to do the different. It gives it a nice strong texture, and you can get that tiger bread texture where you can get the nice the tiger pattern that goes on. It's quite nice. Okay, so we need to go back to the LLVM backend here. We can do intrinsics here, so don't worry about that. So if we go to LLVM core, we can build a landing pad. So a landing pad has a type. It has some functions to it, which needs to be in the runtime, obviously, which is annoying. And then we also have this, which is... We could just cheat. Because there's the GCC. I don't know. I just don't like exceptions. It's just like, I know why I had to do this. I know, but... Sorry, I'm just trying to think this through as I do the things. Yep, we don't even finish out the words. But yeah, I am getting to this point where I'm thinking, okay, what's going wrong? Yeah, my brain is just shut off right now. It is just dead. Sorry. This is probably it's getting very more boring in the stream now because my brain has just shut off. And all I've got is my character at the moment, not my intellect. Yay. Hey ho, hey ho. You can talk about the most randomest things I've done this week because clearly you can't do much when you're in lockdown except doing weird things. The landing pad is what we were wanting, correct? We need a type. We have a personality function, number of clauses, and the name. The name we can just leave blank. That's always leave that as just an empty string, not null, but just an empty string, which is fine. The personality function has to be well defined, but that doesn't actually help me. Unless it's the return type of the personality function. Because then you would actually have... Ooh, I'm just figuring this out. So, because sorry, people in the audience will be like, "How the hell are you not doing this, Bill? You sound like you're a moron. You've never done this before." I'm like, I have done this before, but I'm just like brain dead because it's late at night and I've just had 2 pints of beer, and that's not much, I know. But what's wrong with me? Oh no, I'm becoming lightweight. Oh no. Yeah, I know. People can't see what actually I'm doing here because there's pretty much a dramatical thing going on. It's not just speaking definitely into the microphone. I'm going from side to side, pretending you're like, I don't know. Hey ho. I'm insane. This is what happens when you have lockdown. You don't have people to keep your sanity. But people have seen me on stream before, so I've been like this normally. So this is no different. Yeah, it's no different. Okay, so let me think this through. Let me think by rubbing my temples because that will make me think better. Because reasons. Sure up, audience. Right, think. Why can't you think this way? Okay, so you know what? Let's just get Milton out and actually just draw what I actually want. Oh, that was drawing something else for another person the other day. Okay, I've now got my... why is the pen not working? Come on, tablet. Unplug the tablet and then plug it back in again. Yeah, I need to restart my tablet in a minute. I'm no rush. We'll just use a pen, the mouse to do it all. So, as you've seen what I need to do, the actual, screw it, just do text, be easy enough. If you're doing assembly code or something like that, what you're wanting is here is block 1. This is not assembly or anything like this. I'm just writing pseudocode to explain what I need to do. You then what you want to do here is you've got this recover call. Let's just call this is the recover block. You will then effectively in this block, entry block, whatever. Init exception recover block. I know this is like pseudo C code I'm writing, by the way, and I'm just doing like GNU C here. If it is not okay, or if it's like there was an error, say just an error, then we're going to do it in here. And then other code, no, just normal code. And we just do the handle of the normal code here. I think this is actually probably the better sort of thing. So what happens is if you go back to this, you want to go back to the recovery block. And the recovery block is then going to sort of return, when you do recover, it's going to return some error. Be it just a Boolean, be it some other pointer, whatever. that thing is. And yeah, whatever. Okay. Okay, I'm at this point where I'm realizing I probably shouldn't start programming anymore. I should just go to sleep, because my brain is like, this is simple, Bill. You know it's simple, but your brain is not working. So I'm just going to have to stop, because I literally am at that point where I'm like, look, I'm looking at it, I can read it, but I can't think, I can't process this. I apologize for people, I can't do this on stream. Before I'm going to talk about other, go away, I do want to talk about some really, really cool things that are happening in the Odin universe at the moment. So one person at the moment, which is, again, I find this absolutely wonderful, is on the forums. His name is Dreoz and Drows. I don't know how to pronounce the word. I apologize. He is working on the Odin formatter at the moment, which is part of the Odin core library. So he has the format in here and the printer. So the printer and the format is just a wrapper around the printer, effectively, just to make it worker. I will recommend him move this to a different package. It's not in Odin, but just like in a command package, so it can be part of the tooling system. But he's got the printing system working in here. And interestingly, the printer is not even 2,000 lines. I know there are bugs in here. Like, this is a bug. Where is it? There's a few bugs in here already. I can just read them like, oh, that's a bug. But in general, it's pretty damn impressive, and we will be able to get this work better. And the better we can get this, not the better, the quicker we can get this done, the better for everyone. It'll be just so much better. There is so much time, but again, one of the issues it's just yeah. It's going to be fun. I can't wait either. You're right. It's going to be very good. It's going to solve a lot of issues again with coding styles of people and canonical styles as well, especially in the Odin code base, where if everyone you don't have to enforce it obviously, but it'll do it. It also means that if we need to do minor syntax changes, like the thing I was talking about at the beginning of the stream, which was the semicolons debacle, then we can actually just automatically do it. And if people have to upgrade their code bases, it's fine. There's no problem, because the approach I want to do is the intermediary stage, which is the strict style. Strict style is technically a pure superset of if that's if and only if I wanted to go to the no semicolon route. It will make other people's workflows nicely, yes. It'll also make things such as pull requests very good for the Odin code base and other people's code bases that use Odin. It'll automatically format things. So it just, again, it removes it reduces a lot of bike shedding issues. Not all of them, but just reduces it. And it'd be a very nice thing to do. So that's one of the things in the community. Some people are also working on some really good stuff as well at the moment. I've seen people working on native encoding and decoding stuff, like especially for like JPEG and PNG. That's been really quite nice. What else has been working on it that I can show publicly? People are working on their Vulkan stuff. That's pretty damn cool. It's pretty damn nice is what I'm going to say. People are working on it. I won't show my work on Embergen at the moment because I don't want to show any of the code accidentally, just in case. But that's coming along very well and very nicely as well, and Odin has been helping us be very productive in that. I will honestly state I am probably twice as productive because of the language, at least, the language aspects, using Odin than I would have been in C. And 2 times, that's 100%, is hell of a lot. And it's very hard to measure, but yeah. Oh, we land this weekend. Oh, that's lovely to know. Thank you. I know there's other... Yeah, that is amazing. It's going to land this weekend. But yeah, there's stuff like that where it's really nice that it exists. Because even though we've been using external libraries, I've been using like the STB the Sean Barrett ones, the image, the STB underscore image, whatever you want to call it. They've been really nice, but again, having it in native Odin means that you've got less issues of having to worry about linking external libraries anymore. Because it's in native Odin, it'll work on all platforms natively, obviously. I want to probably implement some of the stuff. I've already written them already. Like I've done LZ4 compression, encoding and decoding already in Odin. I've just never done it as a library. And also I could probably do LZW as well. There's a few others I could do as well, but which one? All right, I'm trying to think. There's LZW. Oh no, it's TIFF I'm thinking of. TIFF has a minor difference in LZW compression, and it's like ever so slightly different. I don't know why they changed it. There might have been a reason for it. One might have just been literally an accident and it just worked. Literally, it's probably that. Or it's like something in the specification they didn't implement it correctly. I cannot remember. Yeah, there was also the FLIF and FUIF as different extensions, a new impression image encoding formats, which are for the web. FLIF seems interesting. At least I'll say that. And yes, it has been abandoned. I know it's been abandoned, but I've not really checked out FUIF. Let me just check. So FUIF. That's here we go. FUIF is the responsive image format. Yeah, fine. And FLIF was abandoned. FLIF is strictly lossless, by FUIF can be lossy and lossless, which is nice to know. I didn't mind it being a lossless because it was damn smaller than PNG anyway. WebP is a nightmare of a format. I agree. Wavelet, yeah. So for people who don't know, there's Wavelet and DST stuff, and if you're going to encode stuff, I prefer DST to Wavelet, because if you're going to get artifacts when you're doing like lossy compression, I'd rather have the DST ones for most images than the Wavelet ones. The Wavelet ones, you start having random like halos appearing, and it's because it's a Wavelet thing. It's not really you're doing it in chunks anymore. You're turning it into like a weird Fourier transform. It's just bizarre, and Wavelet compression is a pain in the ass as well, because I can understand your pain. I can understand your pain very well. Again, sorry, something to do. DST versus Wavelet. I bet there's not. There's a paper. There is a paper on it, obviously, and it's 6 pages long. This is literally an awful paper. Why? I could have just read it, but no. What about one from Microsoft? Any images, or they're just talking of technical shit? Yeah, technical crap. Well, let's just explain DCT for people. Discrete cosine transform. So we go to the discrete cosine transform, which is what JPEG uses, by the way. And many other, again, there's many other image video formats as well. JPEG 2000 uses the Wavelet ones, but every the JPEG just says just discrete cosine. And what's interesting about discrete cosine transform is because it's an orthogonal set of different things, and you can actually also, it's orthogonal, and you can use it as a replacement. You can use it as an angle to regenerate anything if you've got an infinite amount of them. I've thought about using these for different higher dimensional things. I'm not going to say any more, obviously. Not obviously, but just saying that. But yeah, there's different discrete transform things for multi-dimensional stuff. But yeah, what you have is a lookup table. So in like a JPEG, you'd have this 8x8 table, and then you'd have how much each of these things contribute to make the final image. That's the idea. And then some of them will be less than them. So then you do a certain encoding, like what's the name for it? I can't even remember the name. Well, you do the zigzag thing to encode it, because that's how it does it. And when you order it in that way, you find there's usually zeros, so you just literally drop them off, or at the very low levels, you just drop them off as well, and that gives you the compression, and that will give you the different images when you're doing the JPEG stuff, which is quite interesting. But the different factors you got all this will give you the different weighting, and if it's perfect, by the way, you can technically get a perfect image from all of this. You can then get it back, but you usually want the compression, you want to drop some of the stuff off, like the higher the higher frequency stuff. So the discrete wavelet transform, which is the other stuff, is here. If you can see what happens, you can probably guess it's going to have these halo effects. It's in this JPEG 2000 image, for example. And it's slightly different. So now you've just, instead of having these cosine things, you now have got wavelets going on here. Is this a very good explanation? Yeah. So this is, yeah, you're just doing a summation of all the things continuously. Oh, that's awful. That's an awful explanation. Is there a better way? I know this is common for Wikipedia, but Wikipedia is just like, unless you already know what you're talking about and you're just using it as like, oh, I forgot the term, you cannot use this as a learning resource. It's dreadful. But yeah, wavelet transforms. Yeah, they're a tight thing. You can decompose any function to wavelet transforms because it works. It's no problem. But oh, good God. Sorry, I'm just what's the technical term for it? Just Wikipedia annoys me. List of Fourier-related transforms. Yes, there's multiple different types of things you can just set as basis functions and such. Yeah, there's continuous ones, which is not the ones you ever want for the stuff you're doing here. You want all the discrete. There's discrete Fourier transforms, which is in practice are actually pretty useless, except for audio. I'm talking about images. So you want the discrete cosine transforms are usually more useful. Anything in this list? Z transforms? Which one's them? Modified which one's the Hartley one? Yeah, I know what the Hartley one is now. And the Adamard one as well. Adamard one is which one's the Adamard? Yeah, that's what it is. Sorry, I'm not explaining this. I'm just going all over the place. Morton order, you're right. It's a Z order curve. Thank you. I couldn't think of the word. Yeah. But that's it. There's discrete Fourier transforms and the cosine transforms here as well. And there's the Chebyshev ones as well, which are... Those are actually pretty interesting, the Chebyshev ones are. The Chebyshev things are... I was explaining... Was it last stream or one of the previous streams? Either. I was explaining how I was derived... Oh, yeah, it was the last stream. I was trying to show how you do the cube root solution and how you'd actually do it. And what you do is you have to use one of the Chebyshev identities for the cosine stuff. And you're trying to make it look like... and you can make it look like what a general form of a cubic thing is. You can make a cubic look like p cubed plus like some k p plus. You can make it so you don't have a cubic term anymore, a quadratic term anymore. You can just have it be the cubic, linear, and constant. You can get rid of the quadratic by doing certain transformations. And once you get into that form, you can make it look like a Chebyshev transformation, which then you can have it in a certain identity, and you can actually get the roots out. It's a very clever thing. That's why if you've seen the roots of a cubic polynomial before, you'll see like, why is there a cosine in there? And that's the reason. You can show it without the cosine. It just looks dreadful, but the cosine form is much easier. Here's the Chebyshev Polynomials, which is this little thing here. You can show the identity, and we even showed on the stream how to derive it. Is there a big long list of them? I don't care about all this. Unless does it tell you about cubic? No, it doesn't. But yeah, there's the Chebyshev cubic function. The solutions. Yeah, you can get it into this kind of form here, and this form here, and then you get all the cosines popping out. It's pretty clever. It's a pretty clever trick. Now we are entered into Thor's Day, the son of Odin. I think we should call this a night. So thank you very much for all listening. I apologize that my brain had just cut out and I didn't actually get to the juicy stuff, the really juicy stuff on this stream. But we got some stuff that I can just usually off the top of my head and just go, believe me, learning on there for you. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on. So thank you for watching. If you've got any questions before I go, I'll wait another minute or two. But yeah, other than that, yeah, that's about it. Does it tell me what the standard for this is? No. Okay, so thank you all for watching, and good night.